Mike Owens with Inside Fighting, joined today by Angela Hill, who's coming off another huge win in the UFC strawweight division, this time last Saturday against Ketlen Souza. Angie, always great to sit down and chat. How are emotions after such a big win?
Emotions are high. I'm happy because it's the first time I've won a split decision. I'm surprised that I wasn't freaking out when they said it was split because usually that's like a sentence for a loss for me. I stayed hopeful as they were calling that third name, and I was really happy that I was able to get it done.
Given what you've gone through in previous fights, as you mentioned, I think every split decision in your career not going your way, the scorecards are getting read out and you realise that at least one of the three judges has gone against you, what does that feel like and what are the emotions going through your head?
It just makes me think like fuck, I did it again, like I left the fight too close. I felt like I was good, I felt like I was doing good things. I felt like I blocked everything big that she threw, but I also know that you can't, it's hard to tell if something big happens. That's the easiest thing to kind of say, oh yeah, this person's doing work and this other person isn't. And I've always been more of an inboxer, more of a counter fighter. When I land, a lot of times people don't see it, even though the my opponent's face is getting busted up, even though I land more strikes on the strike count. You still, if they do something big and I just absorb it and block it, it still counts against them. So my biggest concern was that I didn't do enough big things when she started throwing like haymakers and spinning stuff. And even though I felt like I did a good job of blocking all that and returning, I was worried that that was gonna be the next thing, like the next thing that I'm like, ah man, I didn't do enough, and they scored it for the other girl again, even though I beat her up more.
How important are kind of the optics of the fight, i.e., looking like you're landing with bigger shots than maybe than you necessarily are?
I mean, they're super important for me because like I'm obviously on the wrong end of the
Mm.
optic spectrum every time I have a close fight. And you can look at the split decisions and say, oh, okay, it's only been four, but there's been a lot of decisions that were unanimous, and people are like, how did they score it for the other girl? So it's not just about the splits. It's just about, going to decision in general and landing more than my opponents and doing more damage than my opponents and still coming out on the losing end. It was hard for us to figure out what exactly it was. Everyone has inherent biases, and everyone is going to go in there expecting a fighter to do a certain thing. So I feel like, I a lot of my takedowns don't get credited because people think I'm a striker. I
Mm.
remember watching one of Lupi's last fights, and they're like, "Oh, Lupi Godinez has never been taken down before," and I'm like, "The hell." Took
Mm.
her down twice in my fight. So it's one of those things where everyone is human and everyone has a perception of what the winner of the fight should look like, and a lot of times it hasn't been me. So we focused a lot, especially after the Ricci fight. We focused a lot on not looking tired, a lot on throwing even more volume, making sure I mix in the takedowns, because that was one of my more recent fights where I kind of shied away from it. I got to the takedown position and I didn't go for it. I like psyched myself out of doing it. And yeah, I think for me a lot of my losses can be accredited to just like, a confidence thing and
Mm.
not having confidence in my grappling, because I've been in the UFC since my first fight. So I'm still trying to get rid of that baby version of myself that's like, ooh, I better stand with them, because now I'm coming in and I'm out grappling grapplers, like people who are getting into the UFC now, like Souza. I've been grappling longer than them. So
Mm.
it's something that I need to remember going into each fight. Like, hey, people are afraid of my ground game. They're afraid of, my strikes. I need to put it all together every time I get out there.
So when the referees got hold of your hold of one of your hands and hold of one of your opponent's hands, you're more on the pessimistic side of things than the optimistic side of things.
I try to stay optimistic all the time, like, because I know in my head I won,
Mm,
like, at the end of the fight, she had to be helped out of the cage. She's the one who got like ice strapped to her leg and she had her arm in the sling all night, and I'm out partying and gambling with my friends. So it's one of those things where I forget who said it, but a fighter or a famous fighter said, like a fight should be judged off of who's able to hang out at a bar that night,
mm,
like if one guy's in the hospital and the person's hanging out at the bar, then who really won the fight? It's a
mm,
fight. So I think a lot of judging tends to forget that, especially with the women's divisions where there's more decisions, so there's more room for error. I wish that I could just finish every fight,
mm,
and I'm beating myself up now. I'm still like scared to watch the fight because I'm beating myself up now for not finishing her in the first round where I felt like I could have. I just got ahead so fast. I was hitting her, I was hurting her. I wobbled her with the hands. I took her down. I'm like, why did I take her down? But then I'm like, oh, I had her on the ground. I could have gotten the sub, but I was like not really making a clear decision on what I wanted to do. And she had this really annoying position that I couldn't like really make a decision with real quick because it's
mm.
something that people don't do in training really, just turtle up and
Yeah.
and hide every part of their body. So yeah, like there's parts of the fight that I'm still beating myself up about because I hate that um I hate that feeling that the win was out of my control, and I'm trying to get rid of that feeling, and to go to a split decision win, like, yeah, it feels great to have like my opinion validated that I won. But also I've been on the losing end so many times of that same situation or fights where I was even more dominant and it didn't go my way. So I still feel like there's work to be done when it comes to that.
Before we talk about what's next, what is the Angela Hill go-to post-fight celebration look like?
Ha, definitely. We usually go to a steakhouse. I'll get some kind of boozy drink, like a old fashioned or a Negroni or something with a lot of alcohol, more alcohol than anything else. And yeah, trash food, some kind of dessert that I didn't get to eat during fight week. I'll go
Mm,
to the same restaurant and be like, that one that I watched you guys eat during weight cut time, I'm gonna get that one.
I love it. Um, Obviously, another big victory in your career. You maintain, I believe it's the number 13 ranking in the division. So I imagine coming off this victory, your hope is to fight somebody above you in the rankings. Who do you feel like when you look at the rest of the 115-pound division is a realistic next fight? And also, I know that you like to keep active. So what's a realistic timeline to see you back?
I mean, I already got my list of everyone who's about to fight. So
Mm,
I know Lemos is coming up soon. I'm gonna like stay ready for that, keep my cardio up for that. There's a bunch of random fights like who is it? I don't know. I forget. I have my list. I don't have it in front of me, but basically it's anybody. I know Ribas just fought, and that was a fight that I wanted to have for a long time. I got all the way to fight day and she had to pull out because of COVID, and then afterwards they tried to rebook the fight 2 weeks later at 125, and I'm like, no, that's my walk around weight. I'm not doing that.
mm,
So I feel like Ribas has gotten away with a lot to still keep her ranking in the strawweight division. I feel like she should either move up or defend her ranking more often. And I'd love that fight. I feel like that's a good match for me. It's one that I could really show out with my striking and my ground. I don't know why Gillian Robertson is ranked above me, but that's a fight that I like to get. I forget who she's fighting Marina Rodriguez. So I'll probably stay ready for that if I'm not booked before May. And if either of them fell out, I'd love to fight either of those girls. Those are both two girls who are ranked above me that I haven't fought yet. So I think it's a blessing and a curse, the fact that the rankings always do me dirty. Like on the good hand, there's a lot of people now above me that I haven't fought yet, and that hasn't been the case in a few years. So that's like a good thing on my end. I have some fresh matchups that I can call out, that I can ask for, that the matchmakers might actually be interested in doing. But on the other hand, I know I deserve to be up there. So it is what it is. I just have to wait my turn and keep fixing those mistakes, so I could do the thing that speaks the loudest, which is finish fighters.
100%. The winner of the main event on your card, Jared Cannonier, had some very kind words to say to you in his post-fight media scrum. I believe he said that you warrant a place in the UFC Hall of Fame. First and foremost, will you give me your reaction to Jared's words? And secondly, do you feel like you warrant a place in the UFC's Hall of Fame?
I mean, when he said that, I was like, oh my God. I was really I don't know, I was just really flattered because he's done everything that I want to do, you know. He's fought the best in the world. He's gotten tons of ridiculous knockouts. He's just one of those people who I've always looked up to. And it's really cool to be recognized by someone like that, like to be recognized by, especially by an athlete you respect. It's a really cool thing to feel, and I didn't expect that at all. There was a funny moment because I did that stupid weight cutting during Valentine's Day video,
Mm.
and we had this same workout room. So after I cut weight, didn't even realize, but we left the flowers, the prop flowers in the weight cut room, and he ended up grabbing them for his wife and giving them to her
Oh
on
wow.
Valentine's Day. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, he's an awesome fighter, an awesome guy, and he's one of those people that if you didn't see the tail of the tape, you wouldn't expect him to be the old guy. You know what I mean? You wouldn't expect him to
Mm.
be the 40-year-old. So that's another thing. When he turned 40, and I was watching him fight, and I was still like about to turn 40 and still kind of like in my feelings about it. I'm watching him fight, and I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like
Mm.
it doesn't matter. The fact that it clicked over one age doesn't matter. It's all mental. And if you're able to preserve your body, if you're able to continue to grow, continue to improve that fight IQ, there's no telling how long you can stay active in the UFC.
So do you agree with his assessment that you should be in the, I'm not sure if he's classified it as a men's Hall of Fame or a women's Hall of Fame or a general's Hall of Fame, but do
Oh
you feel
yeah.
like his assessment is valid? And also, what do you feel? Because it is such a loose term in terms of how fighters get into the Hall of Fame. So what do you feel like a fighter should have to do to warrant a place in the
I
UFC's
don't
Hall of
know.
Fame?
Like of course I agree, but like
Mm.
that's like saying, "Oh, do you agree that someone called you pretty?" I'm like, well, maybe. I feel like longevity is something that people take for granted. There's
Mm.
so many people who came into the UFC who were like a hot flash in the pan, you know, and
Mm.
then as soon as they get to a certain level, they lose a couple times, they fizzle out, they're done. Or they get knocked out again and again, and they're done. And these people are retiring in their mid 20s, you know, in their
Mm.
early 30s. So I think there's definitely something to be congratulated for, like people like me, like Jim Miller, like Cannonier, like you know, all the old heads that have been able to kind of stick around, the Yoel Romeros, you know, like
Mm.
just the freaks of nature who kind of disrupt that idea of being in your prime. So yeah, man, I'm not done yet, so I'm gonna keep working towards that so more people agree with it. But I definitely feel like that's in the making, because like I'm already at the top of so many lists
Mm.
especially when it comes to like the female this or the female that. And then when you look at the men's list, when it comes to like fight time, or when it comes to significant strikes or this and that, the fact that I'm in the top three or top four is huge. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think people can hate all they want. They can say, I don't know, you gotta do something more exciting than that. But hey, I've always been the long distance runner. I've always been in it for the marathon, not the sprint. So I love that he recognized that, and I agree. I'll try to do a little more so more people agree, but I definitely
Do you
agree.
feel like you get respect from the fan base in terms of your longevity, in terms of what you've been able to do in the sport?
I think so. I think there's two lines. I think there's the people who just kind of respect the struggle and respect that I have gotten better with each fight, but there's been just this cloud of bad judgment on
Mm.
my record where there's a huge chunk of losses that shouldn't be losses. So I get that side of the fan base, but then I also get the side of the fan base who's like, she's trash. She shouldn't be in the UFC. Look at that trash record. And it's kind of cool having these combating sides fighting for your honor, like, or your dishonor.
Mm.
Like it's I guess it gets people talking, so I think the real ones, their opinions are the only ones that matter. And all my people around me, they know how hard I work, they know how good I am and how talented I am. So those are the opinions I only really concern myself with. But it is nice to see that the fans understand that, like, hey, it's been a hell of a ride and I'm still here and I'm still showing up with a smile on my face. Like that speaks volumes.
I think the real fans certainly appreciate what you've done in the sport, 100%. Last question from me. Thank you so much for your time as always. It's a great start of the
Thanks.
year, coming off a big victory. What are your goals for the rest of 2025? Where would you like to be in your career come the end of the year?
Well, I told my mom if I got 3 wins this year, I was gonna have a baby.
One down,
But
two
I
to
don't
go.
know. I'm like, if I stick to that, I might end up throwing the last fight of the year. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to get a streak. That's all I want to do. That's my goal. Just focus on each fight one at a time, get closer to finishing fights. Um, I think whoever they give me next is a fight that I can finish. There's always going to be a way to victory, and I feel like I'm really honing in on that. Like I felt like I got so close with this fight and I can do it again. So knowing those adjustments and being able to move forward with a win is always kind of nice. So yeah, just getting the streak together. That's the main focus, staying ready. I got my list ready, so I'm ready to jump in short notice. But if I get like a full fight camp, I feel like the girls who are still available, I'm really excited about. Like I think it's Ribas, Andrade, a couple of others. So yeah, I'm ready for whoever they give me.
Well, it's always great to see you back in action. Congratulations on the win. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you back in action soon.
Thank you.